And we look at issues of national concern that are affecting you, are affecting me, are affecting our country, and sometimes the entire region. Now, this morning, we are going to be discussing something of interest. More so recently, those that were following what was happening in the media, we had so much concerns when we saw students from Nakanyonyi Senior Secondary School, where first reports were that they had taken food which had been poisoned. Later, it was confirmed that they had taken food that was contaminated, therefore it was food poisoning. You know that two are different. Taking food that has been poisoned is different from when a person wakes up and says, well, you have food poisoning. So it's about storage and details, but why bother so much? Have the experts in this, and they are with me this morning. I have officials from the body that is responsible when it comes to standards, Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And I have senior officers this morning from the Bureau who are going to be discussing more issues regarding food safety. Join me, welcome Pamela Akwap, who happens to be the Senior Standards Officer. Madam, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
And at the extreme end, I have a man smartly dressed in a shirt. At least I can see the logo, the one that you usually find on drinks, foods. The one was asking if it is also on beer, but I don't know. But for people, be the Senior Surveillance Officer. Shaka, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Chirabo. Good morning, viewers, and we are excited to be here.
I am excited also to hear from
Yes.
you. And I know the public will be joining us later by sending in their questions on the number on your screen. You can use that number to send a WhatsApp message or a text message. And I guarantee you, they are here to answer to your questions, your observations, and see how best we can improve food safety and food standards in our country. Now we'll be looking at food safety and food standards in our schools. And I'll begin with Pamela here. When we talk about food standards, let's start with standards. What are we referring to?
Thank you, Chirabo. And once more, good morning, viewers. The question you've just asked about standards, food standards, is that these are just a set of either guidelines, they can be rules, they can be characteristic of a product, and for this case, we look at the food products itself. We are not talking about engineering products, but specific to food. And these are developed by UNBS, and it's because UNBS is the mandatory institute that is tasked to develop standards. So when we look at these standards, the food standards, they actually, when we talk about characteristics of a product, you look at the specific characteristics that have been put there. And this describes exactly what a product is all about. And with this, it can be, they can actually entail issues to do with safety, and they will provide also a way that this product will be good for the public to consume.
Now, in your explanation, you brought in our word safety. We have standards and safety, and I want to rush to Shaka. Now, when we talk about food safety, what are we referring to? Because commonly for me, I hear food security, food security. Now, there is safety.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chirabo. Food safety, basically, to put it in a simple way, you could look at the conditions under which, for example, food is prepared, food is transported, or you could also look at it as practices that practices that people practice all through which food passes. For example, this now looks at the whole value chain, like from the farm to the table. So practices at the farm, for example, how is the food stored, how is the food harvested, how is the food transported, how is it packaged. So all these conditions and practices, they encompass what we call food safety, and at the end of the day, they are supposed to prevent contamination. Yes, so the conditions and practices at the end of the day are supposed to prevent food contamination so that you avoid a lot of the diseases, like you said, foodborne illnesses. So basically that would be safety. Yes. Now
that well explained to our viewers, safety and standards, because there are two words that we are going to be using in the entire show. So we wanted you to have them very well and clear. Now, following the uncertainty incident that happened at Nakanyonyi Senior Secondary School, we saw so much worries, so much concern. But this brings me, Pamela, you are a senior standards officer. Now, what are some of those applicable food safety standards that we can be able to know, and how best can we accelerate them?
Thank you, Chirabu. Actually, if you look at all the food standards, most especially product standards, they are safety standards. Because when you look at the details that are stipulated in there, they, as I had said earlier on, their characteristics, and it gives and entails what is required of that given product.
Now, Pamela, what you're going to do, my grandfather in Kasoga Kakuto, Muzei Matia Kamunye, is watching.
Yes.
And he's really listening very carefully. Now, when you talk about food statistics, I mean characteristics, Muzei is getting confused. So let's try to simplify these things for my common viewer, that headmaster who doesn't qualify even to be that director of a school, to be able to understand that food characteristics may be hard for them to interpret and analyze what you're talking about.
Thank you once more. I will first of all start by giving the different standards, then I'll come to that.
Okay.
So basically in schools, what is looked at as food safety standards are basically issues to do with the maize grain standard, which is EAS 2, and then we have the milled maize products, which is EAS 44. We also have the dry bean standard, which is EAS 46. We also have the one for food labeling, which is EAS 38. And we have a code of practice for hygiene, which stipulates the different procedures on how a manufacturing industry should conduct its activities, which is EAS 39. We also have the one for, most schools these days go for fried food, so they will definitely have to get a standard for EAS 888, which is for edible fats and oils. That is what is required. However, coming back to that question that you've just
because
asked.
now you've taken them in Wonderland. EAS.
EAS means East African Standard.
Okay.
That's what it means.
Okay.
So whenever you get a product with that abbreviation, it means EAS. And for Uganda, it starts with US, which is Ugandan Standard. Then you get to EAS, which is East African Standard. Then the action number, which is specific to that
now this
product.
actual number simplifies what? Levels of, because I look at,
an
for example,
identification
maize, if I got it right here, USEAS 44, then something 2019.
What it means that the 44 is an identification number that even when you go to the catalog and use that very number, you will get it there. And then the year they have put, which is 2018, is the year when it was published and when it was put to be in force. Yes, that's what it means.
Now for me, an ordinary director of a school, I'm a fisherman, I go to my money, and I know one of the lucrative business now is a school. You start with 2 blocks, get a loan, then you also become the Lawrence Mulindwas of this world. So I'm going to buy beans for my pupils or students. I'm going to buy my flight. Now, do I look out for this? I just want to know, do I look at a sack? Because, for example, if I'm taking a drink that has been manufactured here, yes, I look for your Q mark, and I'll see it. If it's not there, I'm like, So with these ones, as me a businessman, I go to Chikubu, I have Senkoko has a milling machine. How do I make sure I have these?
Thank you. When you look at the sacks or the containers in which milled maize products are being packaged, definitely if it's a certified product, it will have to indicate the number against which it has been certified against. That is why you will have to go, as a layman, you will have to go and look out for that standard and the logo that is giving an assurance that the product has been certified against that standard.
Now this takes me to the surveillance man. Here, Shaka, what do we call also good hygiene practices? What is that you're looking out for? Because when I was looking at the Nakaonyi story and trying to follow, it was a mixture. It had what you just talked about, standards, that this commodity and this commodity were certified by UNBS. But away from just being certified, they also looked at the level of hygiene in here. So for you, Mr. Surveillance, when you go here, what do you look for? The hygiene standards. This now for the food and what we know, what we should be looking for.
Basically, when we talk of what most people abbreviate as GHP, good hygiene practices, if I can relate it to our discussion in relation to schools, it is hard to differentiate it from storage practices, you know, because when we go, basically when you go to a school, you are looking at the store and how they are storing these products. Mind you, on assumption that the products they are storing are certified, because first of all, the product should be certified, so they bear the UNBS quality mark. So basically, good hygiene practices basically look at the cleanliness of the stores. They look at the palleting of the products. For example, how are they stacked? They encompass things to do with the fumigation. And now that's where also we need to clarify. Fumigation is good because it deals with a lot of issues. But also the problem is that people fumigate with products in stores. Okay? And we know some of these pesticides used leave residues. So the ideal thing, someone should fumigate in advance, even before they stock. So when we are looking at hygiene, we also look at the structure of the storage premises. For example, is the roof intact, it's not leaking? Is the floor cleanable? You know, are the walls easy to clean? Is there a distance between the stacking and the wall? So basically, when we look at what Pamela talked about, we have an East African standard on hygiene. That one now gives the guidelines. Actually, I personally call it my inspection Bible. When you go to any food establishment, you can't go without that standard. It basically sets the guidelines, and in details, it's really a big document, in detail of what a wall is, a floor should be, and that applies both in manufacturing and in storage. Yeah, so it encompasses a lot of things.
Now, Pamela, we know schools are now beginning stocking for third term, because once the holiday is here, then the next thing is they have to stock. And school administrators have a practice that when you stock before term opens, certain things are a bit cheaper than when you wait when the term is opening. So you also stock when everything has shot up. So you buy during the holidays. Now, what should they look out for?
before schools start the next season, one, they should now be looking out for UNBS certification, certified goods, most especially to do with the common products that they use, that is maize and beans. Two, they should also get more information from UNBS concerning the standards that they require, most especially these ones that we have mentioned, which is one is the code of practice, and then also the product standards, that is for maize and beans especially. We can also look at, when you look at labeling as one of the key things that we look out during production of a product and putting it on shelf, it entails issues to do with shelf life. People should look out, or teachers should look out, the headmasters should look out for the shelf life of the product that is on the market. Most of the time we don't look at that, we just look at bulking and having a lot of maize to be stacked in our stores without checking out on the shelf life. So those are some of the things that we should look out while lest we are preparing for the next term.
Okay. Now, Shaka, one thing that runs through my mind, NBS, you look at standards, you know. Shaka, for you, you head the surveillance team. Now, when we talk about standards in schools, I find this a bit complicated, but good you're here. Now, you're not school inspectors. Inspection in schools is done by the Ministry of Education and Sports. Now, how then do you ensure that what our children are taking, what our students are taking, is safe in terms of, you talked about the hygiene practices, we talked about even the distance from walls and all that. I don't know if the Ministry of Education could have those experts as well, but at least for you, are the experts there. Now, you seem left out because you're not going to come to my school as UNBS. I know you go to shops and all that. So where do you come in to protect our children as a regulator of standards?
Mr. Chirao, that's a good question. Of course, we are well aware that we are government and we ideally shouldn't be having conflicting mandates. The good thing that when standards are developed, as Pamela was saying, these are standards accessible. These are standards we develop for our users, and the users can be government agencies, can be ministries. So, but to go back to your question, ours is to make, we make sure that these products that are produced right from at the manufacturing level comply to the specifications. For example, shall go and inspect the mills, and we ensure that they are produced, the maize, first of all, the maize grain, they are procuring the right maize grain. We look at things like moisture, we look at things like infestation by insects, we look at things like residues, pesticide residues, and then at the factory level, or at the milling level, we also look at hygiene. Now that encompasses what we call the certification process, documentation, how do people store their products. So we can at least guarantee that the product that is certified, leaving the milling and is bought by a school headmaster, is of good quality. Now that also applies to other products. So, however, we also engage our colleagues. For example, maybe just to clarify that these standards are demand-driven. We set them up when there is demand. So, for example, right now there is a program running in schools that is funded, and it involves a number of stakeholders. So we do a lot of sensitization, so that as the school inspector goes to inspect, is aware of the standards, so that we don't have to go to the schools and do what and inspect. So ours, we control it at the point of production.
Okay, that was said. Still, I'm with you, Shaka. Now, when you say you control these at the point of production, there's something I've observed over time, that UNBS, after I bring my product, say I have a milk company, milk something, then I bring a sample to you, you certify it, you verify it, you say this milk is good to go, I put I have the Q mark. If it was given to me in 2005, up to today I'm manufacturing, what happens? Even when, because sometimes products, you know, Ugandans are crafty people. The first thing we bring is so good to break even in the market. Now, when demand is there, and I know both of you have seen these things. Today you buy something, it is very good. Over a time, then you start saying, I'll buy you no. But they still have that Q mark along with them. So a person who handles surveillance, why is it a one-off? Or how often do you go back to check that this maize mill could now be moving away from the standards we looked at some time back? When we had the Sudanese standoff, sounds, but look, this, but then it got the Q mark and it's been a long time since you do that. So then how can we rely on you that the food our children are taking, much as these sacks have those marks and the East Africa standards, Uganda standards, it is still safe? That was accurate or verified long time ago.
Yes, Chirab. Maybe to start with, as an enforcement department of UNBS, we have scheduled programs. And these programs involve surveilling countrywide, both on the market and in the factories. So on top of that, we also have another department of certification. Now these guys, they do surveillance audits. Now these are abrupt audits. So an audit team will, without unplanned, go to an establishment to confirm that this manufacturer is not deviating from the requirements. Now, as surveillance, we do a lot of operations. For example, we do stage roadblocks. I don't know if Chirabo, you have seen us on roadblocks.
You know, we have seen you people active.
Where?
You guys take weighing scales.
Yes.
I don't know if your key, that is your key mandate.
No, however, for the record.
Even in the smallest village.
You will find Mizan. No, for the record, that has been our label, Mizan, because that was the first mandate of UNBS.
And there you're very active.
Yes. And right now, if you have been keen, we go to the roadsides and mount operations. And these operations are meant actually to ensure that if your permit has expired, because mind you, this permit is given a 1-year period, and it's renewable every after 1 permit year. And the renewal means going back on the drawing board with UNBS and making sure you have not deviated from the requirements of the standard. So those are some of that is one measure. So for example, you're transporting, for example, maize flour. We stop you and we check your product vis-a-vis our system. If you are not certified, we shall literally impound your truck and request you to go and apply. But on top of that, we shall even pick samples and test them to ensure that as you are going through the certification process, your product is also safe. That is one. Two, we also do regular surveillance inspections in these establishments. I think last year we really mounted a massive operation on maize flours. We inspected most of these maize flours, we closed most of them, they certified. That's how most of them have come on board. And thirdly, we do regular sampling. For example, we can have a schedule and say we are going to sample maize flour on the market. We shall pick samples, we shall analyze them, and then we shall act. So it is true we are dealing with our brothers and sisters who have not yet appreciated the relevance of standardization, but we are also upping up our game, and we try to make sure that we enforce.
Well, I'll now be moving at some of the questions that are coming in to my guests. I have the Senior Surveillance Officer, that is Uganda National Bureau of Standards, but I also have, that is Senior Standards Officer. So please send in your questions as you're looking at how best can we improve food standards in our schools in Uganda. Now, one says, good morning, presenter. Thank you for the versatile choice of relevant topical issues. You're most welcome. Thank you for always watching. Good morning, Robert. I don't think standards are followed. On paper, yes, but practically, no. If I can ask, how often do the UNB's officials inspect in schools to confirm whether the owners of these schools are actually buying these approved products? Alfred from Mbale, thank you so much, Alfred. GMU, thanks for the program. The answer to food safety in schools must start from the farm, food retail shops, and stores. UNBS are not doing their work at all. I don't think if their labs are functional. If functional, how often do they take samples from open food sellers? That is a Samson in Tirinyi. Okay, well, then, good morning, UBC. Tell me the details of poison, brother or sister. This message is not very clear. Please, you can resend it. The details of poison? That is a hard one. And none of my guests can also answer details of poisoning. But please keep your messages coming in. Now, let's first look at the few that have, I don't know who chooses to take on what. Ladies first.
Yeah.
Thank you for those beautiful questions that are coming in. Yes, I'm aware that there are some few inspections and there is something which is ongoing. However, we have the real person who is himself an inspector in that area, and I think he will answer that. And also the issues of picking samples from the market. As he has already indicated, this is something which is ongoing, and we do it periodically at certain times during the year to ensure that they get samples from the market. I'm aware it's also ongoing, and he will give more details because he's in that department. I for one, I'm in a different department which is tasked to develop standards. So I will.
Yes, the ball is in your hands, Shaka.
The ball is in Shaka's hands.
She developed the standards and we follow up. Thank you, viewers, for the questions. They are really, that means actually people are attentive. Yes, to go to the first question, standards, someone is wondering whether actually standards are followed up in schools. Yes, as I intimated before, we do have a Ministry of Education that has the relevant departments to follow up with schools. However, our role basically is to ensure that what is consumed in these schools is meeting the safety standards. So ours is to certify and make sure that everything a school would procure, right from the flour to the beans to the oils, is certified, and that is the guarantee we can give for the quality. Now, as I said, we do sample from the market. We sample from the market, we sample from the manufacturers themselves, and all this is done to ensure that the products being manufactured and sold and consumed by our sensitive clients, the pupils, are safe. On the second one from the stores, actually I like the submission of the viewer. It is true standardization should start from the farm to the table. And that's why I said food safety, everything you do to avoid contamination of food from the farm to the store, that is basically food safety. And at any one time, you can get a foodborne illness, whether you have eaten a cob of maize, you know, that not necessarily has been milled into flour. Yeah, so Our labs, to inform the viewers, are accredited. Now, because they are accredited, they're international accredited, they have the capacity to ensure that the results we get are true results. Okay? So, our viewers can be confident that yes, our labs are accredited and we can produce results. Now, how often we pick samples? We do our best to regularly pick samples, but also when a manufacturer is certified, that manufacturer has obligations to frequently submit samples to the lab, and that forms part of the certification process. It also forms part of the renewal process. Yeah, so as a surveillance department, even when we go out on the market and we find any product that is suspicious, that product, we shall pick samples from it and test it. Because you see, we are dealing with businesses. You cannot, with their products that are obviously suspicious, and you impound them and test them and then release to the owner. But there are those ones where you say, okay, let me pick a sample and I analyze. But we also have a program of dealing with complaints. Yes, I would also want to commend our viewers. We have really got a number of complaints on suspicious products. And when a complaint comes, we really treat it with the utmost urgency and we act. Yes, about the issue of poison, Mr. Chiraba, I think we are not competent to handle that one.
Now, very unique question. You've just talked about you check standards, you visit these places, but one asks, will UNBS standards work only in, he says, well, UNBS standards work only in town. In villages, they don't, because in our village, in one primary government school, parents are being told to provide maize, 25 kilograms, beans, 7 kilograms, then 10,000 grinding and firewood free. Now, my question is, will these meet standards of UNBS? Because these foods are bought from different places and at different time and in different qualities. That is John Chizito from Bujiri. We also have one, good morning. All I'm saying is that the incident that happened calls for a wake up to school for inspection authorities. Joshua from Lida. And one, I propose you train focal persons in institutions to work with UNBS. Pastor Alex, these people will help you reach where you cannot be, he says, countrywide. Now, we look at one who is saying, well, if every parent is bringing, and these maize mills, one may doubt if all have been accredited by UNBS. I bring my 25, another one brings today, may I bring today, the other one may bring tomorrow, storage issues. That's how best can we overcome this challenge as far as protect the lives of the consumers of this food?
Thank you, Chirabo. Around last year, actually it was towards the end of last year, we did a massive operation on maize millers, and we went deep down in village, and we actually inspected even a person, these, you know, these roadside mills. We are happy that the response was really good. There are our people out there who do not know what to do. And actually we are happy that if you look at our database of certified companies, the biggest part is actually maize millers. They have really picked interest. So it is true, we are trying our best to go deep down in villages, because we are also aware that there are people who do hand milling. These are petrol, those petrol, yeah. So they do hand milling. But you see, those are a little bit not as complicated as mass milling. Yeah, so, but actually we do sensitize. Within this year, we have had a lot of sensitization in different regions of the country. We have had sensitizations of heads of schools. We have had sensitizations of district education officers. We have had sensitizations in Gulu, in Eastern Uganda and Western Uganda. And all this is to make sure that the stakeholders are on board. Yeah, so we do sensitize, and then it is true there's need for a wake-up call on schools. I think even the owners of schools should take the responsibility. The responsibility is not only on government. Yes, Mr. Chirabo, in different countries, the responsibility of the citizens to enforce the responsibility is made on the citizens to enforce standardization. If you see something suspicious, raise a flag. So the concern in schools, I will not say there are so many incidences that have happened. The concern in school is right from the parent to demand for accountability. The schools procuring certified products. You know, we used to have PTA associations. Those were more of like accountability. And then the heads of teachers and owners of school, UNBS is there just to answer any inquiry or any query or seek any guidance. Even you asked a question of what to look out for third term. The heads of schools can even go on our website. These standards are there. Yes, they are procured, but in case you want to know which standard is applicable, we have a website. And if you want to inquire about a product, we are still there to help. Yeah, so I like the comment of Pastor, training for people, and that is why we are advocating for the involvement of district leaders in this cause, because their political drive also helps us in our standardization drive, because they are peer leaders. They are listened to. So it is true, every time we have sensitizations, we engage them. Yes.
Well, time is flying. Let me have Pamela's final remarks.
Dear viewers, my final remarks for this is basically, one, we need to work together, you and us as UNBS, to make these issues of food safety a reality. So what does it mean? That you should be more engaged in the issues of food safety, especially now that you have kids or school-going kids who are going to consume this food. What are you going to do? We would like to inspire you that now that you're getting to know more about food standards that are contributing to the food safety, take in interest in knowing what your children are consuming by inspecting the school stores to see that the food that is there has the true shelf life, the real shelf life, and then also to demand for accountability on the food that has been consumed by the students, and also demand that the people who are supplying the food to the schools, because by you knowing that, you will actually know either the suppliers are getting the actual food that is certified, or they are buying, they are producing actually they themselves the foods that are certified. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Pamela. And Shaka, as I have your final remark now, there is a question here. Hello, UBC TV, good morning. Thank you for hosting those guests from UNBS. My question is, if a school has its own farm and they produce their own flour and beans, are you not going to impound their products once you find them in stores without certification?
Thank you, Chirafu. Any product that is produced and is going to be massively consumed should be certified, or at least should undergo an audit process, at least to be certified. We also have system certification. Now, in system certification, we look at practices, good hygiene manufacturing practices. Now, in such a scenario, we are well aware that there are schools that have farms, they mill and prepare for the children. In those instances, the schools can apply for system certification. They can apply for good manufacturing practices. So these are some of the provisions that we have in UNBS. But we would be interested in knowing whether the quality of the flour being given to the kids is complying with the requirements of sales. So that does not exonerate that type of product. Yeah, so it's also, we shall also go there. Yes.
Okay.
Because we're also interested in the quality of the grain. Yes, Mr. Chirabu.
Well, I just want to thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Thank you so very much, our viewers. And of course, we'll be together in the next hour. But very important is, parents, please take keen interest. These are your children. Find out. Pamela talked about even who is their food supplier. You know, just do not give a deaf ear at the end of the day when you have issues as food poisoning. Then we all rise in arms and ask, why is UNBS? Where is the Ministry of Education? You have a role to play regarding safety of your children. Have a lovely day. Ruben is here, ready to tell you how good a team called Arsenal is performing, and of course others there with the sports updates. Good morning.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel